Okay, so we are really on the top of page test. We are still involved in understanding the significance of saying that Moshe nishnava bezeh. Zeh means that you see the real thing, not the representation, but the real thing itself. So we run on top, and thus it's not possible that the yesh, meaning that when it comes down lamato into Gashmius, that should conceal for him the truth and the elokus that's in it. Like I mentioned to you the story of this person questioning me whether I am in this picture. I look totally differently, totally different garments, totally different age and so forth. But you looked into the eyes and you said, "Oh, it is you," you know. Same way, if a person changes his garments, but you see his face, you'll know who it is. Again, it is not through a process, but because you say this is him, this is not like him, this is him. This is a very important principle. In general, we discussed this, the principle, and I want to reiterate. Because this, the Rebbe is connecting this to the idea of Chochmah and so forth. This principle exists and can be realized only if you recognize that Hashem created the world, so that there is an inherent truth in everything. If a person's face or anything in the world has developed by external effects, by external causes, there is no element of Zeh. Everything is a reaction to something else. You understand what I'm saying? The whole concept of Zeh doesn't exist, because there is not an inherent truth in it. It's a reaction to one thing or another. The Gemara says, it's a whole story in the Gemara about Hillel, Hazok and Hillel, you know, hearing about Hillel. And somebody wanted to test Hillel's tolerance, anivus. And Hillel was very big on he tolerated anything he was able to bear anything. So this man says, I'm going to, they had a bet. They had a bet amongst themselves, these light-haired, who will get Hillel angry. So this guy took up the gauntlet. He says, I'm gonna do it. So he goes Friday afternoon after Hillel is already preparing for Shabbos, knocks on the door. Hillel comes out. Yes, I have a question. Oh, please sit down. Why are the feet of these people, or they who live in a certain section, why are they in a certain place, why are they so thick? So Hillel says because they live in the swamp. A lot of liquid, a lot of moisture there. Then it comes back a few minutes later. Hillel, another one of those stupid questions, one after the other. Finally, he sees that he's not going to succeed in getting Hillel angry. So he says, you Hillel? He says, There shouldn't be many like you. That's why. He says, because you caused me to lose so much money. The whole story. So, just remember the question, the person's feet can be blown up because he lives in a certain area. It's not because the feet do not represent the zeh of the person. But that which represents the zeh, what represents the zeh? Face. The eyes particularly. This is a reflection of the chayes hanefesh. And that is there because what his nefesh is, and not because of any other external causes. Okay. Loche. And therefore, because that he was roya, he saw the reality itself. And therefore, Gam be'ez neviyosei, even at the time when he was saying nevuah. At the time of him saying nevuah, what is the info nevuah? Nevuah means that Hashem is actually communicating with him. Hashem communicating with him means what? That he is getting communication from a source totally devoid of worldliness. Nothing to do with worldliness. It's not contained in any keli. Not like a Novi, when the Novim saw it by some kind of an indicator, some kind of a riddle. He was communicating with Hashem directly. Even at the time when he did not require to shed, to be dissociated from the Gashmius. He was remaining, standing, so to speak, on his base, without any trepidations, without any uncertainty, loss of solidity. V'yachar hanvuah miyad, and after the nevuah, immediately, it says v'shaval hamachana. He returned back to the camp, meaning to the community. Lasik b'tzorchit tzibur, to get engaged again, to be involved in all the needs of the community. Which means further down, shagam be'ezahi, which means that even during that time, when he was involved in tzorchit tzibur, and he was dealing with all kinds of communal problems and disputes and arguments and so forth, hoyo makushor betachlis, he was makushor, tied to a lakus, betachlis, to the extreme, in totality. This is the union of Moshe and Azeh. V'hinei, Moshe nisnabo b'koi gam ken kanal. Moshe said nevuah also in the form of koi, not only zeh hadover, but koi Amar Hashem. So why did he say koi if he had the level of zeh? Why did he then also step down and use the koi? Omnom, however, b'chinas koi shenisnabo Moshe. This aspect of koi with which Moshe Rabbeinu said nevuah, is above, that koi is higher than all the neviim shenisnabu b'koi. It's a different kind of koi. V'ho'inyan. How do we understand it? What is the inyan? What is the pshat that his koi was higher than the koi of all the other nevi'im? again, I want to go back to what I mentioned just a moment ago. That to understand these principles is important in order to get in touch with our inner thought, get in touch with the sense of reality that we have in our seichel. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the difference? Moshe was in Snabat. It's just a point of information. That's not the point. Chassidus is the important. Chassidus is not just the information, but to understand it, because that brings out the deeper aspect in your seichel. Tehine isa b'tikune zehar. It says, it's brought down in Tikkun Zehar, shegam bina nikro koi. That even bina can also, is also called koi. We'll go through the Kabbalah terminology quickly, but this, in that bina is called koi, seems to be contradictory to what we said all along, way before, that koi is in malchus, and anything above malchus, zo is already zeh, not koi. And in Tikkun Zehar it says that bina is also called koi. B'moire oir, ois dalet sif lamed vov, kosav the mus nikro meiche ema, vein shayochim lenukva. That ema, which is bina, is also called the mus. Mus means a likeness. I said I'm going through the Oishes HaKabbalah. It seems to be posing a question. But we just finished saying before that even Zo, which is below Bina, Zo is the Midas, the Spheres Atzilus, is also called Zeh. Rag HaMalchus Nikro Koi. Only Malchus is called Koi. Shuhu b'chinas aspaklario d'lo nohar. It's like the view that does not shine. V'zo nikro aspaklario hamiyiro, the bright view, canal. Ve'eich gam habino shalamayla mizo nikro Koi. Therefore, how does it say that even Bina, which is above Zo, is also called Koi? Therefore, we must conclude that what is the intent when we say that Bina is called Koi? The meaning, the intent of saying this is the following: because relative in comparison to Chochma, the Bina is called Koi. Bechinas Kidmuseinu, which is the union from Kidmuseinu. When Hashem created Odom Orishin, it says, Nasa Odom B'tzalmeinu Kidmuseinu. These are two expressions that seem to be saying the similar thing, but they're very different things. And Kidmuseinu is a lower element than Tzalmeinu. Tzalmeinu means actually the very same aspect itself, the Zeh. Kidmuseinu means like a doimet, something that's similar. So he's saying like this, that Bina, even though Bina is above Malchus, above Zoh, but it also can be, in a certain sense, be referred to as Kidmuseinu, as the similarity rather than the real thing. Because relative to the way Chochma knows things, Bina is only Kidmuseinu. Again, we will get to discuss this a little while. Ukmei Malchus nikro koi legabe zo. Just like Malchus is called koi in comparison to zo. K'may kein bechinas bino. Similarly, the meaning from bino hagam shehi l'mayla me'azo, even though it is above the zo, mikol mokoim yet still legabe hachochma nikro koi. In comparison, relative to chochma, it's called koi. All this will be discussed as we go. In general, the concept of legabe, what's meant legabe? Huh?
Isn't it to include? Legabe to include?
No, legabe means relative to. This relative to, legabe, So the whole concept of relative to, we will discuss. There is chokhmah, and legabe chokhmah, bina is called koi. Legabe bina, zo is called koi. Legabe zo, malchus is called koi. So therefore, there's no. It seems like there is no principle involved. It's all relative concepts, but it's not true. There is principle involved. When we say koi and malchus, it's a different, and we have to understand the concept of koi and malchus, or the concept of koi and zo, or the concept of koi and bina. They're different levels. This we want to be able to understand in it. Similarly, we find B'inyan Shomayim Va'oretz. In the principle in Inyan, in the reference that's used that which we refer to by the name of Shomayim Va'oretz. Shomayim means the heavens, and Oretz means the earth. So it's obvious that Shomayim means an upper element, and Oretz means a lower element. And this reference manner of Shomayim Va'oretz is used in many different levels and many different contexts. So normally we say Shomayim Va'oretz Shehem Zun. Shomayim Va'oretz is Zo and Malchus. That's Shomayim Va'oretz. So Zo is Shomayim and Malchus. The Nun is in Nukva. This is. This is Malchus. This is Oretz. And then the Shamayim v'Oretz Elohim, Shamayim v'Oretz on the higher level, Heim Chochma Bina. Shamayim v'Oretz at the higher level is Chochma and Bina. Here we say Shamayim v'Oretz is Zo and Malchus. Then we say at the higher level it's Shamayim v'Oretz Chochma and Bina. In other words, relative to Bina, Chochma is called Shamayim, and Bina is called Oretz. Hare, therefore we see, Habino Nikro Oretz, that Bina is called Oretz, Av Shezo Nikro Shomayim, V'Habina Hilemal Mimenu. Even though that Zo is called Shomayim, like I said, the Zo Malchus, so Zo is called Shomayim, and the Bina is L'mayla Mimenu, and Bina is above Zo, and yet here, relative to Chochma, Bina is called Oretz. Elosha Mekuvan. But the point is this: the Mekuvan, when we say that Bina is called Oretz, we mean Legabe HaChochma Nikra Bina Oretz. That relative to Chochma, Bina is called Oretz. Okay.
Bina's Aretz.
Bina is called Oretz relative to Chochmah, which is called Shamayim.
In a sense that it's lower.
After we get to the point of discussing it, we'll put it in perspective, the term Shamayim and Oretz and all that. Okay. This, the whole inyan, that here Chochmah is called Shamayim and Bina Oretz, and then Zohar is called Shamayim and Malchus Oretz. How do we put this in perspective? An interesting inyan that the Rebbe is going to present here. Aderech Moshel HaYodua, this is based on the well-known Moshel, Mehablilois, from the Moshel from Blilois. What is Blilois? Shenikro Schwindeltreppe. Schwindeltreppe. Anybody know what Schwindeltreppe is?
This is Yiddish.
This is Yiddish. Schwindeltreppe are circular steps. A staircase. You know what it is, though, right? A circular staircase.
For Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh, you know, for Fiddler on the Roof?
Shekels.
A circular step. I mean, normally steps are going in one direction. Circular step is
What's the word in Yiddish?
Schwindel.
Schwindel. Schwindel.
Schwindel means a step that makes you make your head spin.
Spiral staircase.
Excuse me?
Spiral staircase.
Fire escape, right. Spiral staircase, right. That's exactly what it is. Now, a spiral staircase is a moshel for a profound concept. We just now finished talking about Zeh and Koi. Zeh means this is the reality, and Koi means like that. Now, Zeh and Koi is, as we said in Moshel, says Zoh is when you see something frontally, and Koi is when you know about something, you see it from the side, from the back, or whatever it is. Now, Schwindeltreppe, as you go up, you can be looking in a certain direction straight, and then you make one more step, and all of a sudden it's on your side. Make another step, it's on the other side. It's in the back. And make another step, all of a sudden it's back in the front. And you haven't turned away from it.
So
Not like
this is like the idea in geometry when you have the idea of a sine function. When you have like the same number can be bigger and bigger, but when you plug it in, it's going to end up with the same result.
yeah, well, because there is a different thing. There because the angle is what decided. This is something else. This is you are going upwards. But you're going upwards without a changing direction. So you're going. Normally, when you go up the steps, you're going in a certain direction. Then, if you want to turn, you have to turn in this direction. Then you're staying put in the same place and just rising upwards and upwards.
Is this similar to the other day you were giving us a Moshel, the difference between a Holech and
And oimid. Right. Right.
It's the same concept?
Well,
It's still a little different because it's spirals.
yes, there's a certain there's a similarity in the concept that we're going to discuss. So this is a moshel from Schwindeltreppe. This moshel is from the Baal Shem Tov, by the way. That's what it is, a moshel hayodua. Okay, and what is the muscle? The muscle of Schwindeltrap. So Schwindeltrap have this quality. You can go up and actually be, in a certain sense, less clear about what you see than when you were lower, because you're not facing it directly. You're closer to it, but you see it from the back. You don't see it clear. Then when you on the lower level, you're further from it, and yet there's a certain degree of clarity that is greater than if you were on the next step, which is closer to it. So the muscle from the Schwindeltrap is sheyesh bechinas ochel biyocher, ocher biyocher. Aleph beis aleph means ocher biyocher. Ocher biyocher. And in contrast to that is ponim beponim. So let's say two people are standing next to each other. So you would think people are standing next to each other. That's the closest that can be. But what if these two people are standing close to each other, are turning their backs to each other? Back to back, they're furthest away from each other. So this inyan Ochabi Yochir is a certain way of relating. There is an element of Ochabi Yochir Shul Lemailo that is really higher mebechinas ponim beponim than the bechina of ponim beponim sholemato himen b'madrega, which is below it in madrega. It's a lower madrega, but it's ponim beponim. It could be ponim beponim on the lower madrega, and it can be a high madrega, but it's only back to back. V'hainu moshel habelilos. And this is the muscle of the blilos. Shekshahoya b'madrego hatachteno. That when he was in the lower madrego, roa as hatzura shehi noichachoi begeva ha'omut. Then he saw the tzura, the form, whatever it was, shehi noichachoi, which is facing him, begeva ha'omut, on the top of the pillar, and he was able to see the tzura straight. Normally, when there is a Schwindeltrap, the Schwindeltrap are built. Modern Schwindeltrap is a little, but usually it's built around a pillar, and they're attached to the pillar on all sides. They're going down and down and up. So he could be standing on the lower madrega and seeing the pillar facing him, begeva ha'omut, and then he sees the tzura facing roya. Ukshoel b'maylo yesek. When he rises at a higher level, humeachurov, then the tzura becomes from his back. Veineroya es atzura, and he does not see the tzura at she'oil b'madrega ha'gimel, until he makes the next step, in the third step. V'harei, but then, if we analyze it, we see this. Kishehu b'maylo habeis, when he was in the second mile and second step, harehu goveho yoiser, he is then higher mikmei shehoy b'maylo ha'aleph, than when he was on the first step. Av she'ein eroya es atzura, even though that at that stage he does not see the tzura rak me'achura, only from his back. Nikomo can it still be yosei kreva yoiser, but it's closer to him. So you can be closer and not see the tzura. You can be further and yes see the tzura. This is the muscle of the Schwindeltrap.
I'm confused because didn't we say that on a higher level back to back, is still a higher level than being a lower level face to face. Right?
It is higher because you're closer,
But it feels lower.
but it's less of reality, less of clarity. In the Tanya, there's a little portion. It's called Chinuch Kotten. Then the Akdoma to Shah Yichud V'Emunah. It's printed in small lettering. You know what I'm talking about?
I probably read it before.
I'm sure you did right. This is part of the Seder of saying Tanya. Say also that portion. And over there, the Alter Rebbe says, Sheva Yipil Tzadik V'Kom. Tzaddik falls 7 times and rises up. Rises up again. When he falls, it's a real fall. And Alter Rebbe explains, why does he fall, a tzaddik? The answer is because the process of rising up is that you first have to lose the clarity, the sight of the previous madriga, in order to be able to relate, to go to a high madriga.
There's a story of someone who did the Talmud Bavli. What was it?
Reb Zera. Reb Zera fasted to forget Talmud Bavli in order to be able to learn Talmud Yeshana, which is a deeper level. So he falls from Madrid, and during this fall, he has to have something to sustain him and so forth. That's the idea. So then he says that even though he say at Yipel that he fell, when he falls, it's not a real fall to the ground. He is still higher than other people. He's still higher than other people in his overall stance. He fell off from the clarity and the view of his madriga, not that he fell to a low madriga. So in other words, it could be a fall, but you lose sight, you lose clarity, and yet you're still at the higher madriga. As a matter of fact, in real terms, in a so to speak, in a deeper sense, the reason that he falls is because he's now working to reach to the higher madriga, to the next madriga. That's why he sort of gives up this view, in order, because he's digging to a higher madriga. This digging to a high madriga and this realizing of that there is a high madriga to which he has to aspire, that itself defines him as at the higher madriga than he was before. Before he was satisfied when he was, and now he realizes, no, there is the high madriga, and that's what he is working for. So that insight that he recognizes the high madriga, that itself puts him on the higher madriga than he was before, and yet it's called an nefila. Why is it called a nefila? Because of the sense of the clarity and the sense of getting guidance from his view, he cannot do it. But guiding him at that point is, the Alter Rebbe says, his emunah and so forth, but not his seichel. His seichel has lost sight of this reality. So on the one hand, he's still in the same madriga, actually higher, but but nevertheless, it's called a falling off in terms of his intellectual perception. So forth, it's a falling off. Okay, so this is the muscle of the Schwindeltreppe. Belilis. So the similar inyan is to be understood in the nimshal. Nimshal means what we are trying to compare it to and to what we're trying really to understand. We're not trying to understand the Schwindeltreppe. We want to understand how the inyonim occur in Ruchnis.
Moshe's Nevuah specifically, right?
Ultimately, in Moshe's Nevuah. We also in the Bechinas Zo, Shehu Lamato Medbino. That the inyan of Zo is essentially below Bina. As we said before many times, Zo is below the Bina. Fakir Bina is what brings out and reveals the Zo. And yet, Hu bivchinas ponim beponim. Zo has the quality of being ponim beponim. Hainu, which is ponim beponim, Hainu bivchinas gilui ho'etzem. In Zo, there is the sense of the etzem itself, of the essential reality. Or Bino, and then Bino shalamayla mizo. Bino, which is above Zo. Hu bivchinas oche biyoche. Bina is has the quality of being oche beoche. In other words, you don't have gilui ho'etzem. You have a knowledge of what's called the oche, through a back door of knowledge. And we'll read one more line and then we'll stop and discuss it. Elo. Shehu bebchina eliyinu yeseir, except that in Bina, even though it's ocher biyocher, but it is in a bechina eliyinu yeseir. It is in a higher element. Hainu bebchinas ho'er elyon. What is the higher element? That Bina deals with the higher oir shemeir bechochma bebechinas gili hamahus, which it shines in Chochma, which is the union from Gili Hamahus. So, okay, one more line. The Bina has the ideas hametzius of that which Chochma has Gili Hamahus. Now we'll stop and we will discuss this a little bit. There's an interesting phenomenon in the Balei Tshuva world. There are different ways that a person comes to Tshuva. Tshuva is a very trying decision, to change his whole lifestyle. Sometimes he needs to break away from the family and friends and so forth, and go into a culture, into a way of thinking that he's totally unaccustomed to. He's accustomed to think completely differently. Not only is he not accustomed to, but he grew up thinking that is primitive. That it's not the way to think. And now all of a sudden he has to change around and accept that way of thinking. And it takes years to acclimate to it and so forth, and yet it makes a change. So it's very challenging. It's not an easy thing. Normally, in terms of an intelligent person, it takes time and it takes various gyrations, various cycles of realization, more and more, until he makes the decision a little bit slowly. In general, there are two phenomena, two influences. One is what he learns. He attends classes. He learns Tanya. He learns Siches, he learns all kinds of different things, and things begin to make sense to him, and he says, and it makes sense. He says, this is right, this is true, this is the truth. And then there's another element. The other element is he actually participates in the life of a family, like he participates in the Suda Shabbos Friday night, participates in the davening, participates in the Shabbos afternoon, participates in the Fabrengen. This is actual participation. Now, a Fabrengen even, certainly a Suda, a Friday night Suda, don't compare in terms of depth, intellectually speaking, to learning a class, no matter what class it is. Doesn't compare. Intellectually, the class is much more convincing than, oh, it's a nice atmosphere over here. I like this song, the Nigna Fabrengen. Doesn't compare. And yet, a Suda, a Friday night Suda, in a Jewish home, a Fabrengen, has very often much greater influence to make the decision and to join in than any learning. Generally speaking, you ask about Tshuva, how did it come? I attended this student and I said, this is what I want for myself. What you learned, all of that thinking, that wasn't enough to convince you. That's how it is.
It's emotional as opposed to Chachma, or is Bina?
In essence, the difference is ponim beponim and ochel beochel. That which you learn in class is argued out, coming to you from so to speak, from the back. I'm proving you something. You don't see the thing itself. I'm proving something to you. I'm arguing it out. That's called be'ocher. You don't really see it. You see it logically. Even if you're convinced, but it's only logic. Logic is an external recognition. Whereas when you come to Fabrengen, or you're attending a Suda, it says, oh, that is a direct view of it. This is what this means. This is how you experience it. This is, this is like ponim beponim. See the reality of it. Intellectually, they don't compare. Like you said, this is emotional and this is intellectual. It is emotional, but the important thing is, it's not emotional that you feel good. Somebody who becomes a Baal Tshuva because it feels good it doesn't last. It is something that he is convinced of its correctness, convinced of its truth. And how is he convinced of its truth? Because he sees it clearly. Where does he see it clearly? Ponim beponim. He showed him clearly, this is the way to live, this is the human, this is the truth. This is beyond explanation. It's not based on logic, it's based on reality itself. This is called ponim beponim. So here we see, in this example itself, we see that, okay, now the learning is bina, right? It's arguing it out and explaining things. So bina is like ochel beochel. Like you come to a class and the teacher is giving a lecture, is teaching, and you say, okay, show it to me, convince me, prove it to me. So it is not a real vision of what you're learning. It comes to you bits and pieces through some kind of a method of argument. You always remain outside of it, and you just take it in and you judge it in your own seichel. Am I convinced? Am I not convinced? But you don't have the real thing. Whereas when you have ponim beponim, it could be on a lower level, but it's real. To make a decision, a life decision, you need a sense of reality. Logic is not enough.
Logic is not involved?
Not enough.
Not enough.
Wasn't logic a lower form of understanding, because it's inherently human and it's inherently tied down to this world, while something such as seeing the experience of a Shabbos dinner for bringing, and that brings one up higher?
Why is it higher? It's intellectually lower. You're experiencing this is on an emotional level, whereas when you're learning, it's intellectual. You have real points and real concepts.
So it's machshava and ma'aseh.
No, this is seichel and midas. You had it right. This is emotional, and this is seichel. This is bina and zoh, essentially.
No, are you saying there's a more common way it happens?
Generally speaking, that is how it happens. Yes, you have to have conviction first. You have to have learned and say, "Oh, I think it's right." But to make the step over, it doesn't happen through the bina part.
Step over is chachma.
Step, not in chokhmah. Step of chokhmah is way beyond it. The actual change in life happens more likely through the experience of being in somebody's home, being a bringing, and things of that nature, which is intellectually lower, but it has the quality of ponim beponim. Whereas in bina, in learning, it's acher b'yocher. What is the yom bocher like acher b'yocher? Like we explained yesterday or the other day, that when you see somebody from the back, you're convinced it's him, but you still have a question and an answer. Is it him? Then you say yes. When you see ponim beponim, it's not is it him? Yes, it is. There is no. It doesn't come to a question and answer process. There's no question. You see him. This is the union of actually participating. This is like the midas element. This is what the Rebbe is saying. Zoh is ponim beponim. It's a lower madrega than bina. But it is a different kind of realization. It's a ponim beponim realization. Bina is a high madrega, but it's acher b'yocher. So there is a mila in bina, definitely. Definitely there's a mila in bina, and we'll discuss what the mila in bina is. But then there is also a mila in zoh. What is the mila in bina? So the Rebbe says the mila in bina is I'm reading again. Okay, I'm going back to the line that begins Shalamayla Mizo, Hovachinas Ocher Ella. Even though that bina is Ocher b'yocher, but Shehu b'bchina Elyena Yesir, but it is in a higher madrig. The bina, the understanding, the intellectual realization that even Ocher b'yocher, what is it engaged in? What are you trying to understand? What you're trying to understand is a higher inyan than you experience in Zoh. Why? In what way is it a higher inyan? He explains on this. Hainu, b'bechinas ho'er elyoin, the bina applies, and the bina is trying to understand the higher oir shemeir b'chochma that is clearly visible in Chokhmah. So if this is the same oil that is made by Chokhmah, what is the difference between Chokhmah and Bina? The difference is that it is meir b'chochma b'chinas gilui hamahus. In chochma, this oir is in a manner of gilui hamahus, which we'll discuss in a moment. But then this same oir, bebino hu b'chinas idiyas hametzius mizeh. And bebino, this same oir that is shines in chochma, is in a manner of idiyas hametzius of that oir, whereas in chochma it is gilui hamahus. And this is the mila, this is the special higher element of bina relative to zoh, that in bina it is the oil that's made b'chochma, which is the higher, except what is the difference in bina and chochma? That in chochma it is gilui hamahus, and in bina it is only idiyas hametzius. And mehus and metzius, which we'll discuss, are very much different. Chochma certainly is superior to everything. But nevertheless, Bina has this smile relative to Zoh, that it is engaged to understand a higher oir that is in Chochmah. Whereas in Zoh, this is a lower oir. Okay, this is the, so to speak, the outline of what we're going to discuss. You got the point? This is a higher oir, the oir of Chochmah, except in Chochmah it's Gilui HaMahus, and in Bina it's Idiyas HaMetzias. In Zoh it's a different oir, it's a lower oir. Before we go to that, to understand this in Chochmah Gilui HaMahus and Bina is Gilui HaMetzias, we have to take a moment and somehow understand the term oir. What is oir? Oir HaChochmah, oir shemeir b'chochmah, b'bchinas Gilui HaMahus, and in Bina it is oir shemeir b'gilui HaMetzias. What is this thing called oir? If you understand something, you call it oir or you call it a subject. What is the oir element? For example,
Revelation.
Huh?
Your revelation. Maybe it's not.
Gilui.
Yeah, that would be good.
All right, let's.
I mean,
Huh?
I don't know.
No, it's not a question you know. I don't. The question is a rhetorical question. Okay, you're not the point of a rhetorical question. This is something which you always lose the point. The point of a rhetorical question is to open our thinking, saying, "Oh yeah, what in fact does it mean?" The minute we have this question in our mind, we focus in on the issue, and then our mind opens up to understand the answer. If we're going to draw the answer from so to speak, from our pocket, it may be an answer, but it doesn't help you anything to understand it. The idea of a rhetorical question is to open the mind and dig in and say, let me focus in and see what it does it mean. What is this? You understand what I'm saying? The real understanding is not, okay, what's the answer? Let's take a look. The answer has to come from the question. What is this?
Inside the cup or the cup itself?
I don't know. What is this?
Styrofoam box.
Piece of styrofoam. A cup. What's a cup?
An open space.
Immerse themselves in.
Okay. Now,
Fill up.
you will look at the cup, okay, I know that you know what a cup is because you've seen it being used. But assume you never saw it before. Okay, there are several things that.
Keeping things in it.
One second. There are several things. I want to propose to you this question in a proper manner. Okay. You see this cup not in a storage room, not in somebody's closet. You see this cup right here on the table. And you think, okay, what is this about? Okay. So you look at it and say, it's sitting here, right next to a person. Right? So obviously, it has to do with the person. It has to be something serviceable to the person. So that this cup is something that serves the person, something that he needs, whether it's something that he consumes or something that he needs as a tool, like to use or whatever it is. No one in his right mind says, it's a piece of styrofoam. It's there because it wants to be here. It fought its way through, and it stayed here on the table despite everyone wanting it to get away. That didn't happen.
Sounds like Rocky.
Didn't happen. That's not the way you see it. You see it in full context. Okay. So now we say we are using the word oil. Okay. I'd like you to focus in. We know what oil is in our context, in a physical context. Light versus darkness. What is our experience of light in contrast to darkness?
It's the source of us being able
I'm sorry?
It's the source of us being able to see.
Yes. And what does that do for us?
Allows us to live, function.
Changes our reality.
Okay. Say you come into this room and it's pitch dark.
Horrible night.
I'm sorry?
You can't see well at night, so I can imagine.
It's pitch dark. And, listen, I can't start running in this room because who knows, if I run, I'm going to hurt myself. So I have to walk very cautiously, feel my way around. But you know something? If you do that cautiously and you feel your way around, after a while, maybe a long while, you will be able to identify every last piece of object that exists in this room. But everything stands, what its structure is. You wouldn't know what's written in the book, but you'll know there is a book. Everything tangible, you'll be able to identify with your touch, with your feel. And then, after you've identified all of that, somebody comes in and switches on the light. Does the light do anything for you at that stage? Close your eyes and think about that. Don't be hasty to answer.
It still makes it easier.
Huh?
It still makes it easier if you turn on the light.
Easier. And only easier? Don't worry about being right and wrong.
I'm
Just answer the way your reaction would be.
Now you can see what's in the book.
Don't argue, argue at the point. Just say, I feel thusly. That's what your intelligence is. I feel that if somebody switches on the light, I say, thank you. Or, what need the light for? I know everything's there.
Thank you.
Right? Is it just a thank you, or is it a big thank you?
I mean, it's a big thank you, yeah. I mean, you wouldn't feel like, I feel like I wasted my time.
Okay, I apologize. Okay, would you agree? Okay, I know everybody is afraid to say something. Oh, I'm wrong. I don't want to be wrong. This is all silly, but would you agree that it changes the whole perspective? Right? This same thing which I identified with my hands changes the whole perspective. It totally means something different. To me now, even though I felt the stable, I knew exactly how thick this board is, and how tall it, and how it's structured, and how, and what its material even I could figure out by touch. But once you switched on the light, wow, it's a completely different experience. Now that you've experienced both darkness and light, I challenge you to explain the difference. As a matter of fact, I'm going to leave the challenge with you. Mitchell, after Tisha B'Av, we meet again. I'd like you to think it's over.
It's good. We'll get the darkness. I'm going to have to dish about it. I like that.
You don't have any more time. You understand the question?
Yeah.
We went through the experience of the darkness. We didn't actually go through, but we kind of projected it quite vividly. And we projected vividly the switch on the light, and we tried to kind of give an answer that the rabbi expects me to say, but then we see that this is not the point. It's not what I expect. It's how you feel about it, because you're an intelligent man. All of us are intelligent people. We don't know how intelligent we are. What is the difference? Why does the light make you so excited?
Because now you're in your natural state. You can see everything. You don't have to think about.
Who says that seeing is a natural state? Here you were in a natural state, you didn't see anything. It's an unnatural state, it was dark. Every night it's dark. On the contrary, the light that we have today, this is unnatural. This is something which was created 150 years ago. That's it. Up until that time, dark meant dark.
They have a place I heard about where they give people the experience of what it's like to a blind person. Just so they can relate to blind people. So it's actually a place where blind people go and educate people, and they go into a place and they walk around and
They feel their way around.
Stuff, and it's this whole thing, I don't remember exactly. I didn't go myself, but
Yeah, of course. Although the point is, we're not Chas v'Sholom trying to experience blindness. We want to understand the light.
but to appreciate it.
To understand what is light mean to us. Because Chassidus is constantly, Oir HaChochma, the Mahus, Oir HaBina, Oir HaZohar. What's all that? Okay?